Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Strategy Shift podcast. I'm really excited today. We're going to spend a little bit of time on a case study for a company, and I think this is going to be really, really insightful. I talk about this idea of the secret that's not a secret, and it's all about alignment. So, let me tell you about today's episode and what you're going to see. Today's episode is called Success, Sanity and Strategy, a Leader's Guide to Clarity. It's actually really, really simple to be successful at business. We just have this thing called an ego that makes it really complicated. I will tell you, it has gotten in my way before. So, the intent of this episode is to create this actionable set of insights as to how you can run your company with more success, more sanity, and greater alignment along your strategy with you and your team. It's where we're going to unpack real world insights for leaders from an actual company with real data, just change the names. And in this episode, we're in this leader's guide to clarity here, we're going to address how to maintain this ambition and drive business success without sacrificing all that clarity and your sanity along the way. How do you get results and actually get it with a lot easier method? So, first thing I want to ask is a question to everyone who is listening in. Thank you for joining. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever felt torn between pushing for growth and keeping your organization steady? You want to grow really fast. I mean, who doesn't want to grow? Who doesn't want to grow their business? And even if you're running a lifestyle company, and that's okay, you got to keep the revenue moving up while you keep your expenses and your operations down and managed, right? So, the question for you is, have you ever felt torn while pushing for growth and keeping your organization steady? Today, we'll dive in with a case study, a real company. Again, we've changed the names, where we'll dive into some of these misalignments and how to address them. My name is Vinay Raman. I am the host of this podcast, The Strategy Shift, and I'm going to share some slides with you here, some visuals with you here in a little bit that I think it'll make it very clear what we're going to get accomplished on this podcast today. My my name is Vinay Raman. I am the CEO of Carmo, and let me tell you what we do real quick, just so you have a quick understanding or my background. I've been in and around technology, machine learning, artificial intelligence for 25 plus years now. I've started 6 companies. I have had 2 exits of those companies. I feel like I've had an opportunity to work in some really diverse environments, learn lots of things with lots of different people. I've worked for the Department of Defense and Homeland Security and intelligence agencies. So, done work internationally, done work here in the United States, worked with different types of teams, different types of industries. And what you're going to hear today is a lot of what we've distilled and built as a company as insights into how you can make running a company super, super simple, right? My background is around business intelligence. It's around artificial intelligence, machine learning, but also human culture. How do you get people engaged? Because Maya Angelou once said, it's not what you say to people, but how you make them feel. I want to show you how you can preserve that success, that sanity and strategy, and get that clarity for yourself and your organization by making people feel fantastic and how to do that really, really easily. So, the first thing I'd like to come back to is tell me where you're connecting in from. Go to the comments. It should be on the right hand side of the screen, I believe, where you can share comments. And please tell me where you're connecting in from. And I'd love to hear the answer to that question. As a leader, have you ever felt torn between pushing for growth and keeping your organization steady? All right. Thank you for joining in. You also, if you are joining as after the live event in a replay, that's great. Welcome. Glad you're here as well. Please type in pound replay before your comment so that I know or we will know that you have come in after the session. All right. So type in the comments the answer to the question about that struggle between growth and organizational steadiness. as well as tell me where you're connecting it from. Thanks. So let's set the stage for what we're going to discuss today. I think today is going to be an interesting and really insightful discussion. I'm going to show you some visuals that you're going to take a look at, and it's going to be like just like that. You're going to say, I understand. I want you to see how easy it is to become really successful in how you do things and how things become really clear. So I'm going to talk about this company called Arcadia Innovations. It's a real world example. And I'm going to start first with a radar chart for a company, the CEO of the company. So let me load this up here, and you're going to see um, Michael Anna, the CEO of this company. All right. All right. You should be seeing my screen here. So let me just start quick with we're doing this episode about Arcadia Innovations, a case study. And this is the Strategy Shift podcast. Let me tell you real quick why we call it the Strategy Shift podcast, because I love racing cars. I love going fast. And one of the most dangerous times or the most precarious positions you'll ever be in a car is when you're accelerating or you're decelerating. You're shifting gears in that vehicle. When you're going around a turn, going left or right, braking, accelerating. When those transitional points occur is when the most peril exists in business and in leadership. When are things not shifting? People, employees, market conditions, presidential elections that are the politics that are changing your environment, changes in direction in terms of strategy and vision. These things are constantly changing. And just like that car, that's where that peril exists. It's where you're shifting your strategy, where things become precarious. So creating this alignment is super important so that you're really firing on all cylinders and very well balanced and grounded as you go into that next stage. So I want to start here with a visual. And in this visual, here's what I want to show you. This is Michael Anna. He is the CEO of a company. And let me explain this chart to you. And here's the beautiful thing about this chart is I'm going to explain it to you, and you've probably already got a felt sense of it. But anything that's out here on this outside edge is a high degree of confidence, a high alignment, or I'll say agreement, in this case from Michael Anna, as to that is something that they're very strong with. That's his perception. Conversely, anything here sort of at the center is low confidence. So he's got high confidence in global presence, relatively high degree of confidence in customer retention and operational efficiency. But you can see some of these other areas as they're closer to the center: employee engagement, revenue growth, financial strength, communication, brand reputation. There's some other areas where Michael's feeling much more friction. First question I'd like to ask you is, can you see this? And do you see what I call the narrative that's emerging? Can you understand a little bit of what's going on within Michael as the CEO for this company? They're a manufacturing company that makes aircraft and automotive parts, and they have to make very high precision parts and get the precision of those parts to very high tolerances. Can you see what Michael Anna is seeing? I would love to hear in the comments what narrative comes up for you by seeing this. Let me ask you another question to go along with this. How long did it take you to come up with a sense of what's happening here? Mind you, this is just Michael Anna's perception of his company. Okay. So if I were to interpret this to you and tell you what I see: global presence, customer attention, operational efficiency, Michael feels that, hey, they've got a good footprint globally. They've got good customer retention, feels better than average or pretty solid about it. And the operational efficiency, they do it pretty well, but there's a lot of internal issues that he doesn't feel quite so confident about. Did you get that same story? There's some good elements here, but Michael's feeling a bit shy or sheepish about certain areas. Is that the same story? And just think about this: how quickly you were able to get to that understanding, right? because this is all about you understanding how to create that sanity, success, and strategy. All right. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment here. I want to ask you a couple of questions. So now that you've seen a little bit about Michael, I'd love to hear in the comments what you saw. And there's a case study that this all comes from where we've done a full analysis of Arcadia Innovations as a company, including Michael and all of his team members. Right? So their ambitions for this company, they want to get somewhere, but you can see how Michael sees the world. Wonder what the rest of his team, how they see it. What is their perspective? Because if you're starting to see sort of the connection here, if Michael sees the world a certain way and his team, his leadership team sees things a completely separate way, are they actually going to be successful in what they do? I'm kind of curious. What are your thoughts? If Michael, who we just showed you, and I'll show you again in just a moment here, but if Michael sees the world a certain way in terms of his company's ability, his organization's ability to execute and move forward, and his team is or is not in alignment, what does that bode for the future for that organization? Right. So in this executive summary, what we do is we actually take a look at each individual member of that leadership team, the CTO, the CMO, the chief operations officer, the chief human resources officer, chief financial officer. We look at all these different members of the team just so you can see what their level of alignment and misalignment is. And these visuals allow you, just like you did for Michael, and I'll show you again in a moment here, shows you very quickly where that alignment and misalignment is. So the question is for you to consider, how often do you find that your own strengths or values as a leader differ from those of your team? Because if they do, does that make it a very effective movement forward? Are you able, if you're not strategically aligned in how you see the company, can you make a really insightful decision going forward? I get a comment here from Kimberly Arnold. Hey, Kimberly, nice to have you on. Kimberly says, "Good day, Vinay. Challenging if the leader and the team have different views of what's required for success." Super insightful point here, Kimberly. And I agree. Uh, Kimberly does a lot of work. She and I have talked in the past. Kimberly does a lot of work about what I'll call, in Kimberly, pardon me if I'm not using exactly the right language here, but sort of the somatic or the, the physical representations or emotions in your body, how you're responding to these things. If your perspective and how the company is looking at things, you're looking at things doing going well, someone else in your team is looking at they're not going so well. You are not actually having a conversation about the issue anymore. And Kimberly, I would love your comments on that. If you're from a somatic point of view, from an internal physical point of felt sense, if you're not getting that, then how can you get to alignment in how you're doing things? Kimberly, I'd love to hear your comments and please correct my language. I want to make sure that I'm saying that the right way. Thank you, Kimberly, for the comments. I'd love to hear what others are thinking as well. So I want to show you another slide here, just so you can kind of see how the CEO looks and maybe somebody else looks. Do they have alignment in the way they're looking? So I'm going to go to another slide here. And in this case, I'm going to show you here. Let's see. Should see my screen in a second here. So we've got Michael Anna, who you've seen before. He's in this blue area. Remember, outside edge is strong agreement, high confidence on that dimension. Towards the center is low confidence or less confidence, less maturity on that dimension in terms of their perspective. So Michael Anna is in blue. You can see global presence, customer attention, operational efficiency. Dylan Petrovic is the chief technology officer. Now let's look at Dylan's graph. He's in red in this case, and there's no real reason, rhyme or reason for the colors, just contrasting colors. So global presence, employee engagement, innovation, agility, and quality control. The CTO see those areas as doing very well. But you see on this area of operational efficiency, Dylan sees it very low, less confidence here. Operational efficiency, Michael sees it as very high. So I want to stop here for a moment. Alignment. Are Michael and Dylan aligned in how they see the company? Now, consider Michael as the CEO of this company. Dylan is the chief technology officer for this company. Who's right? Who's wrong? What is the right answer? Is there a right answer? I'd love to hear in the comments, Kimberly or anyone else. I'd love to hear what you're thinking when you see this. Do you see alignment? There's a nice hand in glove uh, alignment between these two and how they're doing things, or not? I'd make the case, or not. Look at this employee engagement. Dylan comes to the table believing that employee engagement is very, very high. He's giving this a 10 out of 10. Whereas the CEO, Michael Anna, gives it a 3 out of 10. Pretty low score. That's significant, right? Here, financial strength. Michael Anna sees we don't have the financial strength. He gives it a 1. But Dylan sees that as a 4 or 5. Look at these areas, some of these other areas. Agility. Dylan sees agility as a 10. Quality control is a 10. Michael sees that as a 3 and a 5. Can you see how when they're having conversations, they're no longer talking about the problem itself. They're talking about their perceptions. I'm going to raise my hand here. I've been to leadership meetings before. I've run leadership meetings before. I've been experienced these meetings before where people are not actually talking about the issue anymore. They're talking about whether their perception is right. Do you think these two are having great, highly productive, highly effective conversations when they get to the table? Because look how different they see what is happening in the world, specifically with regard to that company. I'm going to stop my sharing here. I'd love to hear some comments in here. Let's see. We've got Kimberly sharing some more thoughts. Kimberly says, correct. You did well on the description. Good. Thanks. Thank you. If one leader thinks everything is on track and others believe things are off track, how do you get them on the same page? Yeah, it is a really useful question. And what we have done here is if you saw that visual of Dylan and the CTO and Michael, who are the CEO, the the first thing is to realize that they're standing at opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of what they're understanding and what they're seeing. That's the first thing is creating awareness in terms of the delta between their perspectives. Because that is why there is a problem. They see things differently. Well, what is the problem to solve? Well, that's a good question because it's probably somewhere in the middle where is the CEO right or is the CTO right? Well, is that really even the most effective question there? What do we define as right as a company? Because I suspect other members of the team also have an opinion on this topic. For example, operational efficiency. Michael was quite high, and Dylan was pretty low. What is that metric? What is the KPI? What is the key performance indicator that says this is success for us? Now you can start to create definition around what is right for the culture in that company. I'm gonna hold on. I'm going to kind of go to another question here. Thank you, Kimberly. These are great questions here. Kimberly asked another question. It says, "Love the point of view of different leaders. Both are accurate from their viewpoint." Exactly right. And Kimberly, this is what I love about what you do in terms of their somatic response, right? Their physical and felt response. They both have a vested interest and emotional tie to what their perspective is. Now, emotions are neither right or wrong. Those are kind of a felt emotion that you have. But how do we coalesce or collaborate or find what that middle ground is? And that's almost exactly what you're asking here. By being able to visually represent this, it gives you a fantastic opportunity to start to say, well, what is the problem here? What are we trying to solve? And what is the actual definition of operational efficiency? It's a great place to be. I often find that companies use key performance indicators or measures that they found on a blog post or somewhere. I've asked questions of companies before when they have a list of measurements as a company, if they do have the measurements. I say, how did you come up with those measurements of success? They say, well, when I worked at that company, I've been in this role of director of operations, chief operating officer for the last 25 years. That's what I've been doing. Good. And What was the last company that you at that you used those KPIs? I looked at this big company over here. And why did you leave that company? I didn't like that corporate feel. So let me ask you a question. You're using the KPIs from that other company and you didn't like that feel, that the culture of that company, yet you're using the same exact measurements here in this company. What is the culture of your company that you want to represent? And Kimberly, I think this is almost to your point, is it's all about finding the right measurements for the company that you are today. And that's what allows you to create that success, that sanity, and that strategy because everyone's aligned on that strategy. They've decided that this is what is a sane measure for our success. So they all kind of come together. And Kimberly has one last point here. I'd love for others to chime in if they're agreeing with what I'm saying, and they've got some other perspective, and if that's got some more color on what Kimberly is saying here. So Kimberly says, that's right. Especially when people are responding from stress, they are motivated to protect their perspective rather than be curious about what else is possible. Kimberly, so well said. I mean, I know this is exactly the space you play into. This is exactly right. The beautiful thing about these visuals is it kind of moves them from a place of kind of what I'll call defending the ego to this is what your answer was. But now you can start to see people are standing in two different places in terms of how they're answering it. And it gives us so much opportunity to ask the next real, most effective question. Why does that exist? And then we can start to explore those answers there. I want to keep going. I love these questions, Kimberly. Fantastic, fantastic, insightful questions. And clearly you're very good at what you do because you can see sort of this narrative that's happening within people. It happens in every organization. And that misalignment between people, someone asked me once, is this kind of an outlier case, kind of just a dramatic scenario? No, unfortunately, it's not. This is a pretty regular occurrence where we see teams like that. And they may not be necessarily everybody so necessarily so far apart. But let me show you some more examples in a second here. Okay. So I want to ask this next question here, right? If we start to look at the CEO's alignment with the operational goals, the financial strategy, and the other areas that either align or clash with the company's direction, what does that allow us to do? Right? It allows us, and this is partly what you're asking here, Kimberly are alluding to, is it allows us to start to not check what his perceptions are, Michael's, as the CEO, not necessarily say they're right or wrong, but kind of say, well, why are those perceptions there? And can we find some real grounding for why those perceptions are there or not? Right. So the question I want to ask you and have you all start to think through here, because this is really useful in what you're doing. I think this is a real nugget for myself over time is how do you handle situations where your focus differs from that of your leadership team? Right. Can you see now, just in these visuals that I've shown you, what that ripple effect that has on your organization? We I call this the strategy shift because I told you I love my cars. Consider we always go in every so often we go in for an alignment of our tires when we put new tires on our vehicles. We get that front left tire and that front right tire aligned because when they're going together like this, guess what? The engine is moving you forward very quickly. But if your left wheel is going this way and your right wheel is going this way, how much of that energy, how much of that power from that engine is actually moving you forward? Less, significantly less. Here's a really interesting stat to give sort of impact to what this could mean. Gallup did a recent survey that says 74% of employees are disengaged in the workplace. Let me translate that word disengaged to they're not aligned, right? They don't see it the same way. So out of every $100 in payroll as a company, this is the average company, 74% are disengaged. So every $100 of payroll that you have out there, $74 out of every 100 horsepower, 100 units of power that you have, 74 of those units of power are just flushed down the drain. Think about that for a moment. 26, 26% of the power that you're putting in the average company is going forward because of this diverse misalignment. Holy moly, that's crazy. You want to know why business is so hard? Why there's no success, there's no sanity, and there's no strategy that feels natural and profoundly elegant? It's because you're fighting each other all the time. And these visuals kind of show you how quickly it is. I want to share a couple of thoughts from Kimberly, she said that's why it's essential for leaders to respond from their composed strategic thinking rather than their reactive known responses. Yeah, Kimberly, and I think what is being sort of unsaid there, and what I think you've captured, and they're probably trying to summarize a bit is, and it is so hard to do that, to step outside of yourself, to find out where that composed strategic thinking is. And part of why I think these visuals are so powerful is it allows you to kind of step back and go, hey, I didn't know so different from you and how I see things. Without picking a side here, the politics that we're feeling here in the United States, the partisanship and how people see how different they are, when in fact people living next door to each other probably have the same set of economic sort of issues that they are undergoing. They see themselves as so different because they're not coming from that composed strategic thinking. I may have opened up a can of worms there, but I think there's so much more similarities that we have, and we see those differences of the things that we fight on, as opposed to finding common ground first and starting to find ways to make alignment here. Kimberly says, one friend said, sometimes my ego is not my amigo. I think that's a fantastic thing. I think there's value in understanding kind of where your ego is playing a part and when it's not. There is utility to it. Ego is not a good thing or a bad thing. It is useful, right? But being able to understand where that ego is, by able to see that visuals, you have an opportunity to kind of inspect that. Um, Kimberly goes on to say, important question: what data are you using to shape your perceptions? And also says, agreed. 74% disengaged are not aligned with the organization focus. You're draining money, and that's the average company. These alignments. I'm going to show you another one here in a second. Look at how these alignments, how quickly you can understand where that misalignment is and can take action on it. 90 seconds. That's the promise I make to organizations, or when I go speak at conferences in front of people. In 90 seconds, I'll make you an expert in the industry because you understand the people and their perceptions. Thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate all your comments here. These keep them coming. They're great. I would love to hear from others as you feel the insights come here. All right. So I want to. I've shown you Michael Anna and Dylan Petrovic, who is so CEO and CTO. You kind of see how they contrast with each other in terms of their view on things. Again, left tire versus the right tire, right? Um, I want to share a statistic with you, kind of show you how significant the impact of this is, right? McKinsey said in 2021 that misaligned leadership can delay project completion by 20%. So consider this: you just saw Michael and Dylan. They're, by just being misaligned, they're adding 20% more time to execution on projects. Gosh, that's I can't think of something. So you've got the 74%, 74% of all the power and payroll that is just kind of going down the drain already. Plus, it's taking you 20% longer to do things. Is this starting to become compelling? I would love to hear what you think. And again, if you're listening to this after the live event, love to have your comments as well. Please share what you think about what Kimberly's saying. Some very insightful comments from her. Share what you think about what I'm saying. Tell me sort of the thought that's going through your head. I'd love to hear what you're hearing and what your perspective on this is as well. All right, let's go take a look at two other people. In this case, we're going to take a look at Michael Anna, who is the CEO again, but Victoria Schuyler, who is the chief marketing officer. You might have some feelings about what's happening here. I want to highlight communication and strategic alignment. Give me a moment here. Let me bring up this slide for Victoria. All right. We're going to have Victoria in a second here. Oops. So we've got Michael Anna, CEO, in blue, and we've got Victoria Schuyler here, who's the chief marketing officer. All right. You've seen a little bit of this, so I'm actually not going to talk here. I want to give you a couple of seconds here. I'm actually going to try to give you a little bit of time for you to digest this and see what you think. Just a reminder: outside is strongly agree, and blue is Michael, and inside edge is strongly disagree or less confidence, and and green in this case is Victoria. So strongly disagree in the center, strongly agree in the outside. Blue is Michael Anna, the CEO. Green is the chief marketing officer, Victoria Schuyler. What's the narrative here? Do they agree? Where do they agree? Where do they disagree? What kind of friction is caused in that relationship? I'll give you a couple moments here to think through this. Okay. So let's look at operational efficiency here. You can see some alignment here. They're probably not exactly eye to eye, but they're directionally the same. Customer retention, well, similar again, directionality wise, but Victoria sees it at a slightly lower level than Michael does. Look at this global presence. Oh, they see it differently. Brand reputation, they see it differently. Tech utilization, differently. Communication, quality control, agility, customer satisfaction. Sorry if you can't see these down here. Agility and customer satisfaction at the bottom, and financial strength. Now, the story that I would see for Victoria here is someone who feels like they're doing quite well. Their customers love them. They've got agility as a company. They've got quality control processes. They've got communication and brand reputation. Or outward facing focus, perception of the company is actually quite strong, and they can deliver it, right? She feels, look at this story that you can start to tell a bit here. She sees that innovation and employee engagement and revenue growth and tech utilization. Can you see how this might be future forward? She's a little worried, a little sheepish or timid about what the future might hold for them. They're doing okay today. Maybe she's starting to feel that the market is changing. And that perspective, that perception of what's happening in the market might be really, really, it's kind of the tea leaves for what's happening for this company, Arcadia Innovations. Uh, Michael's not seeing that same story. You can see he feels maybe comfortable with where we are, but we need to improve the back end. Victoria's starting to see the story. That's what I'm kind of seeing here with this. I would welcome your narratives, the narratives that you're seeing. If you see a different story, I'd love to hear that. But can you see how quickly you can start to weave this? 90 seconds, you start finding what the difference is and how they see the world differently. Victoria's looking about the future forward, especially with her role as a chief marketing officer. She's trying to anticipate what's happening next and to anticipate and respond to that. And she sees that there's some things in the background that we don't have in place. Michael says, we're good right where we are as a company, but we need to improve the back end. So they agree on that. And they probably coalesce on those topics. How they're going to implement it and why they're going to be doing that is different. Imagine that. These diagnostics, the ones that give us these visuals, takes 3 minutes per person. So the whole senior leadership team is taking it. It's taken 3 to 5 minutes per person. Look at how much clarity there is in terms of the alignment and misalignments between these teams. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I would love to hear what others are saying. I'm going to come back. Kimberly's got some great comments, so I'm going to come back to Kimberly here. Stop sharing and share what Kimberly says. Kimberly says it has a great point here, and I think this is something that's worth noting, right? Don't you intentionally have leaders with different perspectives? If they trust each other in each of their areas of expertise, does that work? Or how do they best connect on their unique perspective? This is a fabulous and super insightful question here. So, the way I think of this is if we were to talk about a puzzle, right? I've done some jigsaw puzzles with 1,000 pieces, and it is really, really difficult to do that. If you just, I have kids, and we've lost the box for that jigsaw puzzle. So now it's stored in a Ziploc bag or in a Tupperware container of some sort. I will tell you, it's really hard to assemble that puzzle when I don't know the picture, the overall picture, and we don't all agree, and all of us who are putting that puzzle together, if we don't know what that picture of that puzzle looks like, it's going to be this old wooden covered bridge out in the country with all this beautiful fall foliage around it. It's really difficult to start in the direction of assembling that puzzle unless I know what that picture is. Now, each piece of that puzzle plays a different role. And I think this is the analogy that we can use in terms of answering your question, Kimberly. Fabulous question. Each puzzle piece plays a different role in the big picture. Yet they all have to be aligned in what that big picture is. Ideally, everyone is 100% aligned in where they're going. What is our definition of success for market penetration? What is our definition of success for customer retention rates? What is our definition of success for employee satisfaction? Right? If we say that we've got 100 employees and we don't want more than 10% turnover in employees every year, well, that's a big picture statement there. And the 10% is that employee turnover number. And if we all agree on that, we can all make our efforts to align with that 10%. Kimberly, I'd love to hear if that's answering your question. And another example could be revenue generation or a profitability number, right? If we have a product or a service that we're selling, we want to have X number of clients using this number of hours if we're in services or at this level of gross and net profit in success. By defining those three metrics there, we all understand that we're deploying the product. The chief marketing officer, the chief revenue officer, the chief executive officer, the whole team that works under the chief operations officer, they all can have alignment with that larger goal. So we're all puzzle pieces. They all have different points of view. They play a different role, but they see the picture of that puzzle that they're all playing a part of, and they can align their efforts with that. So, fantastic, really insightful question there, Kimberly. I love what you're asking there. Kimberly has another question here. I'm loving these questions, Kimberly. Keep them coming. Metrics alignment helps and rank order view of metrics makes the path even more clear when you have to make trade-offs. Yeah, yeah, so right. Um, Let me put this up on screen so everyone can see that as well. What we're saying here is that I think there's three words that are super important in everyday life. We're talking about business here, so I'll just talk about the business piece. But for me, I think it's extends beyond that. This is about a personal component too, my personal perspective as well. Why is the purpose behind something? What is the problem we're trying to solve? And how is how we execute on the what, achieving that definition in purpose of that why. And I think it happens in that order. Simon Sinek says it a different way as golden circles. But if we know what the purpose is and we know what problem we're trying to solve, then we know how to solve the problem, right? When you put metrics in place, it creates definition, it creates what we're trying to achieve. Now we know what strategies, what implementations, what tactics we can use to solve that what, because that what is defined by the why, right? Let's go back to that puzzle and the various puzzle pieces in service of that bigger picture. Why are we doing it? We want to build that big picture on the front of the box of that puzzle. What are we going to do is we're going to put all the puzzles pieces in place so that they fit together to create that larger picture. How are we going to do it? We're going to take a look at each puzzle piece and orient how it's going to fit into the equation. I hope that is a clear understanding of that analogy here. I want to thank you, Kimberly, for those questions. Fantastic. I feel like they add a lot of dimensionality to this conversation. I want to share a couple more things with you. In a question for you to consider this, question that I use and I try to think about when I'm doing this. How do differing leadership priorities, especially around brand and revenue, affect your business? Right? If we all have different views of what our brand and our revenue should be, how does that differ if we're looking at a different puzzle picture, right? Overall picture. And I would like to understand more of what you think about. Have you seen this impact in customer satisfaction or team morale? Right? Can you see if we're all misaligned? One is trying to create this wooden covered, idyllic covered bridge, but somebody else is trying to build a picture of the Burj Khalifa as the most modern building, tallest building in the world. The puzzle pieces will fit differently, right? As a matter of fact, we may need different puzzle pieces. Okay. So I want to kind of come back to the podcast title here for a moment, just because I want to kind of bring this all back in. Can you see if we start creating these alignments, we start getting to coalesce around the common vision of what we're doing, how it's easier to create success? Left wheel, right wheel are going in the same direction as opposed to different directions. Can you see how this creates sanity almost it becomes almost easy because everyone is kind of pulling in the same direction. All the rowers in the boat are rowing in the same exact direction. And can you see how the strategy starts to fill itself out so much faster because all the puzzle pieces are fitting in to make that bigger picture? Here's a great stat that I have from Gallup in 2023. Effective communication can increase employee satisfaction by 15%. We all know why we're coming to the table. We know what value we add. And Kimberly, I'll kind of tie this into a little bit of what you do around somatic responses. Right? If we feel every day when we walk in, we feel that I'm appreciated, I have something, I can actually help pull the wagon forward. Holy moly, you don't have to drag me out of bed. I'll show up. I might even start showing up early because I can't wait to be there and be part of this because it helps me fulfill my life mission, my life's purpose. So, I've got one more thing that I think will be really useful now that you've kind of seen CEO by themselves, CTO versus CEO, CMO versus CEO. And let's kind of look at the whole team. So I'm going to share one more slide here, and that's I'm going to leave it after that moment here. Now what you're going to see is look at this whole team at the same time. Hopefully you can see my screen here. All right. So now CEO, CTO, CMO, CHRO. So now this would be a lot to show you as the first slide. There's a lot going on here. But I suspect if you've been watching some of this show, this LinkedIn Live, this visual is so telling of what is happening in an organization. I'm curious, what thought comes to mind? Imagine you've seen this one time, right? You've seen this on this podcast, spent the last 30, 40 minutes looking at this. Imagine every quarter you can do this and see how out of alignment or in alignment your team is. You don't have to do it at the senior leadership level. What if the chief marketing officer has a team? You can do it for them. How aligned are they with supporting that chief marketing officer's puzzle piece? So you can do this at any level of an organization. And if you do it quarterly, you can start to find out where the friction points are. What you can start to see is, gosh, where is the common ground here? Just for sake of time, I won't be showing you more slides. I will send you a case study though. If you'd like to see the analysis of each one of these, the things that I've been talking through, the compare and contrast, where the conflicts are. So if this person conflicts with this person conflicts with this person, why are those conflicts existing? Right? Because they have different perspectives. Who is right? And as Kimberly so rightly said, is when they're feeling it from an emotional or from a somatic point of view, kind of a felt sense, right? Their natural sense is going to be, I'm going to defend things, right? This person in the red over here sees customer retention so high, but this in the dark maroon sees that differently. The dark maroon is the chief operating officer, and this brighter red is the CTO. Can you see how they see things differently? There's going to be conflict there. That's not necessarily a bad thing if you can get to the heart of the issue. And Kimberly's is what again what you do so well is kind of helping them bring to the table. But for all leaders who are listening into this, do you see how it builds the roadmap for conversation? I'd be more than happy to share with you the case study. It's about a 53-page report. There's an executive summary that kind of specifically highlights where the issues are for this organization, and you can build this for yourself. It's actually really, really fast. I'll tell you, this whole process can take less than 3 to 10 minutes. That's how fast it is. So, if interesting, I want to share my slides here as we get to the end. I would like to kind of make sure I get through all the questions and answers. So let me share my screen again. Oops. I am going to get more proficient at sharing my slides here. Okay. So, what's next? Right? You saw this team, what we call the team dynamic. We call this the culture and role alignment index, right? Which kind of goes through and shows, as opposed to a personality index, which is about an individual and how they receive or how they react. This is about how a person is as a functioning puzzle piece, as part of this larger picture in that culture and in their specific role, because the chief marketing officer is going to see things naturally different than a chief marketing officer, financial officer. Exactly to the question that you asked, Kimberly, right? So, how are people playing in their role, and do they see alignment from their role in terms of service of that overall vision? Think about that radical level of alignment and how powerfully that car will move forward, right? Or how powerfully that boat will row forward because everyone's rowing the same way. If you want to do this, it takes a few minutes, 3 minutes, right? And it's the gateway. This link right here, if you go to carmo.net/SSP, you can take it. It's a free alignment, and it'll automatically, as soon as I get it, I'll send you the report and I'll be more than happy to walk you through it. It'll show you what's happening for you, how you compare in the industry to other leaders like you. So you can just do a benchmarking. And if that's interesting, then we can have a discussion about how do you do that for your team, because you'll see how fast it is and you can get this visualization and graphic. This case study is based on a real company. So if you'd like to do this, scan this QR code and you will go directly to that diagnostic, that cultural and role alignment diagnostic. If you want the case study, I'll send it to you. It's about 53 pages long. I would not recommend that you read it cover to cover, because that's not what it's really for. It's about being able to give you depth into each one of these different roles and alignments and how they mix. And you can drop into the table of contents and see interpersonal dynamics as an individual feel like they're part of the team or completely out of alignment with the team. That's really important. It turns it into a SWOT analysis: strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat for the whole company. Where are there problems for this organization? And which ones are the most threatening for the organization, and which ones are the greatest opportunities? It's all in here. All you got to do, oops, I got the wrong URL, but you should be able to, if you type in Arcadia, which is the name of the company, type in Arcadia into the comments, and I will send you that QR code. Excuse me, I'll send you the case study so you can take a look at that PDF, and I'll email that directly over to you. I think that's it for me. I would love to answer any final questions here. Kimberly says, thank you, Kimberly, for your support throughout the course of this. Fantastic visual, wonderful to help focus on the areas of differing perspectives. Yeah, and I appreciate that. And what I'll tell you is the fact that it's so fast. You can do it even if you do it on a quarterly basis. It's really not a large commitment of time. And for someone like you, Kimberly, in what you do, I think you're starting to see how incredibly useful this is. And once you start to see this with an organization, the next conversation is, can we spend time with each one of these individuals? Right? Help them understand, all right, now you see this difference. How are you going to respond to it? Not react. Right? Don't get emotionally upset. Uh, don't get emotionally charged of it. Understand that. And that's actually something if you'd like, I'd be more than happy to put you in touch with Kimberly. That's exactly what she does. If you've got those personality conflicts, people who are very intense in the way they follow things and kind of follow things to a passion, if you'd like to connect with Kimberly, I'd be more than happy to put you in touch with. She's a fantastic resource for that. In terms of, you've seen the alignment of your teams, and now you want to make sure you coach give support and structure to each one of those team members so that they can now start to be part of this coalescing around what that real answer is. Kimberly says, yes, send it over. I will be sending over a case study to Kimberly. You'll get a PDF from me. She typed in Arcadia case. Love to check it out. I will be sending that in your direction. This has been a really useful episode, and I hopefully, at least I hope you felt that. I would love, as an ask, if you found this interesting, please share with me in the comments what you liked about it. What did you get out of it? We do this all the time, so the language that we use is not necessarily as clear because we're kind of too close to the action. I'd love to hear in your words, why was this useful, right? Why do you think others would find this useful? And the second ask is, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being fantastic, how would you rate this? Was this a good use of time and did it create clarity for you, right? So give me a rating on a scale of 1 to 10. This was a good experience for you. If you give me a 10, I'd appreciate it. If you give me a 1, I'd appreciate it. And I'd love to understand why, if you care to share. It's just going to help us make it more useful. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. And Kimberly, gosh, I really appreciate you spending your time sharing and your perspective and your really insightful questions. I hope a lot of others benefited. I'm quite certain a lot of others benefited from the questions that you asked and the insights that you brought to the table. Thank you so much for the time. Kimberly, I'll be sending that case study over. Anybody else, even if you're watching as a replay, type in pound replay, and I'll be more than happy to answer the questions and give you some insights. Type in Arcadia, and I'll send you that case study. You can review it at your own leisure. Thank you for the time. Bye bye.